Hey, this is Waylon from Swiftwood Bows, and today I want to talk to you about set and string follow, what they are, what they aren't, and try to give you some clear definitions, and give you some ideas about what you can do to minimize set when you're making a bow. Let's start off by talking about the definitions of set and string follow, and I want to say before I give you my definitions, there's different ways of thinking about these ideas. I think most people out there have a pretty good grasp of what's actually happening to their bow. They just choose to use different words to describe different phenomenon. So I'm going to share with you what the definitions that I use and that are most commonly accepted in the bow making community that I'm a part of. And even in there's some disagreements about it, but to me these definitions make the most sense and most clearly describe what's happening with the bow. So first I'll talk about set. So set is what happens when a bow is bent and the belly is compressed and the cells on the belly are not able to handle the compression that they're under, and the cells get damaged, and the bow retains some of the bend towards the string that it didn't initially have. And my definition for string follow is simply the measurement of the amount of deflex that the bow has, regardless of where it came from. So a bow could have taken set but not have any string follow, or a bow could have string follow and not necessarily have taken any set yet. They are related, but they are not the same thing, and I'll try to explain that a little bit more clearly. So I think one important thing to know is that when it comes to set, really the bow maker is the only person that really truly knows what kind of set the bow has taken. Because anybody can look at a bow and determine how much string follow it has, but somebody who's just picking up the bow isn't going to know whether that string follow came from natural deflex, whether it was induced, whether it came from set, or whatever. But the bowyer is going to know what the stave looked like before they started, and they're going to know what it looked like when they were finished making the bow. So for example, this is a stave of U. This is the back, this is the belly. This stave has a lot of natural deflex. So if this were turned into a bow, this bow would have a lot of string follow, but the string follow from this stave came from the natural deflex of the stave and not necessarily from taking set. Whereas if you look at this vine maple stave, this is the back and this is the belly. So this bow has a lot of natural reflex. So even if, I'm guesstimating probably this bow has about 5 inches of reflex. That's if you measured a flat plane from one end to the other, and what the difference, what the space would be here would probably be about 4 or 5 inches. So let's imagine that we made this into a bow, and we started bending it, and we lost 3 inches of that reflex. Well, you would say that the bow took 3 inches of set, but the bow still wouldn't have any string follow. It would have an inch or two of reflex still. So this is an example of a bow that could have taken set but not have any string follow. Whereas this U stave, maybe this U stave took a negligible amount of set, a small enough amount that isn't worth measuring, but this bow might have 4 inches of string follow when it's finished, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily took set. So this is an example of a bow that doesn't have any string follow. It doesn't have any reflex either. It's just a straight-limbed longbow, and only I as the bowyer know whether this bow took any set or not, because you don't know whether the stave that this bow came from had any natural reflex or deflex in it. You don't know what I heated in, if I heated any reflex into this bow that got pulled out. And you know, I know as the bowyer that this bow was a stave that had a slight reflex to it, maybe of about a ½ an inch or so, and through the process of making the bow I lost that ½ an inch of reflex, and now the bow is just straight. So this bow took a ½ an inch of set, which is a pretty good amount of set to take. This is an important point. Pretty much any wooden bow that you make is going to take some set. It's just a part of making bows from wood. So our goal is to minimize the amount of set that a bow takes and manage the amount of set that a bow takes so that it doesn't take away from the performance of the bow. Another bow that I have here, this was the first bow that I made here, and you can see this bow has some deflex to it, some string follow. I don't know how well you can see it, and so this bow could have, or the stave could have had natural deflex, and it hardly took any set, or it could have taken set during the tillering process. So when I made this bow, the stave was pretty much straight, and so this bow has taken probably an inch or an inch and a half of set. So you would say that this bow has an inch and a half of set and an inch and a half of string follow. And in this example, the two numbers happen to be the same amount because the stave was a straight stave when I started. So now I want to talk a little bit about the causes of excessive set in a bow. Like I said before, you know, if you're making bows out of wood, you're going to deal with a certain amount of set. It's just a part of the process, but we want to make sure that the bow's not taking too much set. And so the main sources of excessive set are too much moisture content in the bow. If wood has a high moisture content, then the tension strength of the bow is higher. It's harder to break a piece of wet wood, but the compression strength is lower, meaning that it's much easier for the cells in the wood to get crushed under compression and not return. So if you make a bow out of a freshly cut piece of wood, it's going to take a lot of set, and it's going to be a pretty slow shooting bow after just a handful of shots. That's why we season our wood. And so if you're finding that you're taking a lot of set in your bow, that's one place to look. Did my stave get to season long enough? Is it dry enough to make a bow out of? Another common cause of excessive set is poor tillering. If you have a bow that is bending too much in one spot and not enough in other spots, that area is going to be under too much compression for the wood to handle in that spot, and the cells are going to crush in that spot, and you're going to take set in a localized place. Also, it can happen just through poor tillering practices, meaning you're pulling your bow to too heavy of a weight too soon. When the wood is still too thick, the thicker the wood is, the harder it is for it to handle compression. And so that's why we try to follow the golden rule of not pulling a bow past its intended draw weight. If you want a bow to be 50 pounds, don't pull it past 50 pounds at any point during your tillering process. So if you follow that rule, it's going to help you avoid taking set during the tillering process, even if your tiller is even. And the other place that you can mess up and have too much set in a bow is just by poor design. And that could mean that you've chosen a narrow rounded belly for a type of wood that is not strong in compression, like hickory, and it's going to take set because the compression force is concentrated in too small of an area. Or perhaps you've just not made your bow long enough or wide enough to handle the draw weight and draw length that you wanted to get out of it. So making sure that you have the proper design for the type of wood and the draw weight and draw length that you want, making sure that your wood is well seasoned, and making sure that you're giving your bow a good tiller. If you do all three of those things, you're going to not have too much of a problem with set. Now, there's a man named Stephen Gardner. He's one of the authors in the Traditional Bowyer's Bibles, and he wrote an article in the Traditional Bowyer Bible, Volume 4, I believe, about no set tillering. And so he's really taken to extreme this idea of trying to mitigate set in the bow making process, to the point that he's using the scale, the weight scale, to detect what would otherwise be imperceptible amounts of set in the bow. I'm not going to go into full detail of the technique. I encourage you to read about it. It's really interesting and will help you better understand, what's happening when a bow takes set and how to avoid it. But essentially, you're using your tillering tree and your bow scale, and you take your bow to a certain draw length at a certain weight. So maybe it's 50 pounds at 17 inches. Then you take it just a little bit further down to, say, 18 inches. And then you remeasure at 17 inches to see if it's still at 50 pounds. And if it's a little bit less than 50 pounds, then you know that your bow's taken just a little bit of set. And that's a sign that you need to adjust something, whether it's adjusting your tiller or adjusting your expectations for the design and the wood that you've created. Maybe you're going to end up with a bow that doesn't have as heavy as a draw weight. And you continue that process as you go down, recording your weight at a particular draw length, going a little further, coming back and checking to see if the weight stayed the same. And if you follow that faithfully, correcting as you go, adjusting your expectations as you go, you're going to end up with a bow that has taken a lot less set at the end of the tillering process. So I urge you to read up on that. It's an interesting technique and idea. And I hope that this was helpful in understanding what is set, what is string follow, and what you can do about them. Like I said, I know there's a lot of other definitions and ideas out there. Feel free to discuss your ideas with me in the comments below. I'd like to hear your ideas, and we can talk about it. But thanks for watching the video. I hope it was helpful. Take care.